can't hear him when he's talking. Sad thing is my outside voice is the same as my in. Yeah.
The awkward moments of silence. Oh, right.
That must be fast.
Yeah, it is. Bring this meeting to order. City Council and Stuart Municipal Utilities Joint Meeting. Council Chambers tentative agenda, Thursday, May 14, 2026, 5:30 p.m. Need a motion for agenda approval.
Make a motion?
Motion by Russell,
Second.
second by Ingers. How do you vote? Cobal?
Yes.
Capps?
Yes.
Ingers?
Yes.
Nelson? Russell?
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Belden,
Yeah.
Sherman,
Yes.
AB, yes.
All right, before we get moving on, Marquita is here. I'm gonna assume that there's gonna be a lot of questions, so let's just have good meeting etiquette and be patient. Let's not talk over one another, and I imagine that her and Janae will get to everybody's questions and fill us in. So we'll move on to number 2, Thea Management Consulting, organization-wide administrative review.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank you all very much for the opportunity to work with you on this project. And I want to start by saying how impressed we were with the vast majority of your team members. I mean, they are so clearly dedicated to their jobs and they love their community, and that just shined through our conversations with them. And I wanted to also say that when you're tied up with day-to-day hustle and bustle of normal work activities, you know, it's really hard to take a step back and take the time to undertake a project like this. So that's a testament to your leadership to invest in doing that. And I know you were provided with a lengthy report, but I don't want you to be alarmed by how long that report is, because it contains recommendations, but it also contains a lot of the roadmap of how to implement those recommendations and examples of things like your like job descriptions and sample organizational charts and things like that. So with that, I just wanted to highlight a few of the themes that arose as we talked with everyone, and then some of the recommendations. And I thought I would just walk through them, and then we could open it up for questions if that works. Common themes included there was an absence of clearly defined and consistently understood organizational structure. Reporting relationships weren't necessarily clear. There was confusion about budgeting information. There was some overtime and staffing pressure in public safety. There were some performance management practices were inconsistent, and that arose from a lack of, you know, job descriptions and organizational chart and evaluations. There was the standardized, we have some recommendations about standardizing payroll processes, time periods, reporting, things like that. There was some issues with FLSA regulations, and there's one common theme we heard from people was the absence of a direct deposit option for your employees. And there was the dual payroll for administrative employees that is very confusing. So some of those payroll, or some of the recommendations for payroll, for example, we discovered that each department sort of independently determines how time is recorded, when time is submitted, who approves time, how overtime is calculated, and what payroll cycle is followed. And that leads to a lot of extra work on your administrative team, and it also leads to confusion. There's a dual payroll structure for administrative staff, which leads to some inaccuracies in wage aggregation for tax reporting. It can potentially lead to incorrect Social Security and Medicare withholdings. And there's a whole host of other reporting type things that comes with that. IT was an area where we recommended some focus. Currently there's no common domain, so everybody has sort of a different email address format. That can lead to confusion with people thinking maybe they have a spoofed email, like it's not really coming from the city of Stuart. There's also, with regard to network administration, there's no comprehensive overall administration of your network, or cybersecurity monitoring, things like user access and control management, those types of things. There's no centralized control of that. With regard to financial controls and budgeting, I mean, you have some real strengths there with your long-tenured staff that have some deep institutional knowledge and some strong technical performance. Obviously, the commitment to area of focus in some financial controls is the area of component unit reporting, and that's something that we noted consistently in your audit, and so we made some recommendations along of how to address that. With regard to the recommendations related to organizational structure, we talked about the need for a comprehensive org chart that will help you define reporting structures and we provided some samples in the report, and also the need to develop organization-wide position descriptions, put them all in a similar format and adopt them, and then the need to do evaluations. As the city grows, we talked about the operational and administrative functions and suggested reallocating some of those functions to a new position, and a job description was provided for that. We think that would help you with internal controls as you grow. There were also some cash handling recommendations for standardizing some receipt and deposit processes, and fully implementing the Uniform Chart of Accounts, which is a statewide system. Establishing monthly financial review processes, formalizing your year-end closing, and writing and including management discussion and analysis in your audit. That's really important to do and was missing in the audit. And one of the suggestions is just to embrace automation. Right now, you're going through a system where your financial software is being phased out, and you're transitioning to a cloud system. When you transition to whatever system you end up choosing, we recommend that you implement some additional components of that to help with automation and standardization, and that will also help with your workload for your administrative staff, and it could also help with your internal controls when you set that up. And there's some good step-by-step instructions in the report for that too. We noted some budget suggestions were to evaluate adopting a franchise fee to diversify revenue. Of course, with recent state action, that's more and more important. And we also noted the ability to capture some TIF expenditures to reimburse the general fund as much as possible for eligible expenditures. I mentioned payroll and timekeeping already. We also have some recommendations in there about undertaking some workforce planning, particularly to help address some of the public safety overtime. And my understanding with an earlier conversation is that I think Sarah's been working on that recently and gotten a lot of that under control that was noted in the report. We also recommend developing an asset management program for public works and a strategic maintenance plan for public works, and doing some biennial strategic goal setting, like with these bodies together, come together every other year. And I know you have your comprehensive plan, but this is, every other year you should be picking out, here's what we're doing in the short term. This is what we're gonna accomplish these next 2 years. Another recommendation is to do a rate study, and also to formalize a TIF incentive policy that will help guide staff on what those incentives can be, so that it gives them, when they're talking with developers, they have some bumper guards or bumper rails on where they should be, versus needing to come back each time with each individual proposal. They can better negotiate if you have a formalized TIF incentive policy. We also recommended implementing a P card program. That's a purchasing card program. We noted, one of the interviews noted that occasionally they have significant city-related expenses on their personal card. So that would be a good way of addressing that, so that employees are not sort of financing the city purchases. And we recommend conducting a community-wide, or not community-wide, organization-wide salary survey as well, to make sure that your positions are in the right ballpark and competitive, both across your organization and across your workforce, your labor shed. And then for enhancing communications, we recommend weekly staff meetings, or at least semi-monthly staff meetings, so that people can hear and get together. It's my understanding the mayor's been helping out with that, but before that, that wasn't happening. And some regular communications about the budget status with your department heads and your team. So that's sort of the nutshell version, and from there we just open it up to questions. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab my water real quick, excuse me.
Anybody have any questions for Marquita? We're gonna let you off easy. Okay.
So yeah, again, don't be worried about the length of the report. It's just because we put all of the step-by-steps on how to implement certain things and gave examples of certain things in there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. And you're gonna be up next again,
Okay.
so we'll move to number 3, the management consulting, city administrator recruitment.
Yep.
A residency requirement. We'll talk about that. Anybody have questions on?
I can let you know we have 8 candidates so far. And a couple of real rock stars I know you're going to be very excited about. The opening ends on Sunday, and I believe it's Wednesday of next week. The Zoom interviews are scheduled.
Perfect. So, I guess one reason why this is on here, what's your professional opinion about maybe requiring that city administrator to live in the city limits, or maybe just open it up to the school district, or like, what's your thoughts on that? I know that's kind of a topic that's been kind of going around a little bit.
Sure. Well, different communities handle it differently. It's kind of all over the board. There are communities out there that require residency, communities that do not. It kind of depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to have someone who's active in the community, who's visible in the community, then I think that's what you set as your goal, that you're expecting somebody to be, to be at Good Egg Days, to be seen at, the local service clubs, and to be active in those. Because you could have someone who doesn't live here, who's way more active in the community than somebody who does live here, for example. So I would kind of put it back and ask you what your goals are if you want someone who's visible in the community, because living in the community does not necessarily mean you're visible in the community. And conversely, from my personal experience, when I first came back to Iowa as a city administrator, I was with the city of Windsor Heights for 12 and a half years. I was at every, I was popping popcorn at movies in the park and music in the park and at all the events. But I lived, just on the outside of city limits, just because it was really hard to find a house to buy in town. And so that's another consideration to think about as you discuss that is housing stock and housing availability. I also think that given your proximity to the metro, you could limit your candidate pool by requiring residency versus visibility and participation in the community.
That was one of the biggest issues that was brought up before with our prior city administrator was not requiring residency. And so I guess that's why I think it's important. I think it provides clarity that, and checking with Earlham, Greenfield, Guthrie, and Panora, their city administrators all live in town. So
Panora does not.
she does not, Lisa does not.
Mm-mm.
Really?
No.
So she moved out of town?
No, she lives, like there's the homeowners association in the city. She lives in the HOA, not the city.
Just outside?
And just outside the city.
Okay.
I just happened to know that because I was talking to her the other day and we were talking about this.
Yeah, she's been a very good reference for years.
probably go as far as city limits, but yeah, the school district at least, you know, kind of opens it up a little more, give them a little bit more selection.
Was there any kind of requirement put into the job posting? This isn't the job posting that's on there, is it, or is it?
Can I see what you're holding up? Yes.
That's the
It
exact
says,
one?
I believe it says residency preferred, and talks about being active in the community.
I was looking for that.
I mean, I think requiring residency would be a bad idea. I mean, I think we should encourage participation, but I don't think requiring residency in the city is a good idea. I mean, like I said, we're gonna severely limit our candidate pool. It's not like housing stock is plenty, rates are in a favorable position to do that. And let's be honest, how many of us live in the same city we work in? Probably not a lot of us. I mean, as an overall general rule, how many of us do that? And if we're gonna enforce that for our city administrator, why are we not enforcing that for all city staff to live and participate in city events? I go to majority of the city events, and I can say over the 12 years I've lived here, I don't see majority of the city staff at those events. So I think us doing that, requiring that is not a good idea. Obviously, we should encourage it, because we want them to be happy about that. How many of us participate in all of the extracurricular activities that our companies put on? Those that work at Wells Fargo, how many are every single charity events or volunteer events, stuff like that? Probably not many at all. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think it's a good idea. I think we encourage it, we don't require it. And even then, from a legal standpoint, it would be very hard to enforce, because there's already precedents out there with, say, emergency services personnel, that reasonable response for them can be 45 minutes away. I know the police in Des Moines area, you know, they can live 45 minutes, an hour away, and it's not a big deal. So why are we requiring an administrator to be in the city limits if they have nothing to do with any sort of response or anything like that?
We allow the utility workers 15 minutes away.
And honestly, that could probably be challenged. Unless there is a specific state law, it could probably be challenged in
Steve,
one,
what
in
code
a
section is
legal
that? Is it 388
aspect.
I would defer to legal counsel,
Yeah.
but I think that residency requirements have been struck down repeatedly by the Supreme Court, that don't have a strong tie to public safety
It
response.
specifically cites in the code what type of jobs are eligible and not eligible to enforce city limit residency. I can't remember what that, I looked it up.
Yeah, there's no state law that prohibits it. You know, somebody could try to make a case, however, you know, it just depends on the position. Firefighters, there may be instances where there's a 45-minute rule. Obviously, the ideal candidate for an emergency response would live in town or close to the station, et cetera. And I think the courts would uphold that if there was such a restriction. Now, it's a policy matter for you all to consider. I see people on both sides of the issue, and that you know, it's good to have the discussion and figure out what the city's policy is going to be.
Well, even with our public safety, is it, or even our other utility workers, do they have to live within 15 minutes, or do they have to be able to respond within 15 minutes if they are on call? Because that's more of, if you're on call, you have to be able to respond within a certain amount of time, and it really doesn't address residency.
Correct.
I agree with Craig. I think it's a visibility thing, not a residency requirement thing. And if visibility can be worked into a job description or job expectations, I feel like that gets us a bigger candidate pool and I think what people are wanting is to see the city administrator out and about. So I would be more in favor of visibility expectations as opposed to a residency requirement.
I mean, look at the principals. I mean, most of them don't live in town, but they're very visible. The teacher, they're very visible at after-school events. You know,
Well, I think the most important visibility is more of things like economic development activity type of stuff.
Correct.
Those kind of things that really benefit the city. I mean, our administrator should be involved in all of those kinds of activities, I think. Regardless of whether we have an economic development guy, but I don't think that means that our city administrator shouldn't be heavily involved in those type of conversations.
Would you say that you were well-known in your community as a city administrator?
Yes. I'm at like in my current community, I'm at all the farmers markets. I go to the chamber events. I'm involved in all the economic development stuff.
Would you
People
guys,
stop me in the supermarket and ask me questions, things like that.
would you guys say that our former city administrator was very well-known by many people in the community?
Probably not.
I will say most community members don't even know who the city council members currently are. That is a common theme on Facebook. People asking who are even our city and council members, because they don't know, because we don't have a lot of activity. Same with utility boards, same with all of our other boards. Nobody knows.
So that could be a culture shift as well, but.
Yeah.
So where's the happy medium between those two extremes, whether it's residency requirement or not? Like, how do we make that happen? How do we attract that type of employee to come in and be that person?
What measure of visibility do you put in a job description to get the right person without being specific?
I think you just set the expectation from the interview process on and
But
say,
supposedly that's what was done before as far as residency, and that never came to fruition. So I just don't wanna have that same issue again. And, we got lucky, he was able to serve the community for 30 years and had stability. And based on the prior ordinance that was put together, it looks like that person before him was only here a year. Gene, would that be right? The guy before Ash, was he just here a year? Or do you remember?
I know who you're talking about. I don't
I
even
know.
know
I
it was
just
a
read it.
year.
I
I don't
just
even
read
think
it.
it was
I
a
was
year.
gonna say, I don't think it was a year.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
how do we frame that up? How is that measurable if we don't require?
Right, the
I
performance
think you
reviews.
put it in your job description. I mean, I think there's a lot of
But it's
jobs-
not on the job description that's out there, is what I'm getting at.
That's something. So it says the city administrator is expected to be highly visible and active throughout the community. So what does that mean? What's the measure of that? Is it 5 events, 2 events? Are they walking around to each business, introducing themselves? How are you gonna measure that?
well, I think that is something like when you sit down and deliver their performance expectations for the year, you let them know. We expect you to be at least 80% of the chamber events, or, we expect you to attend 80% of the seed meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And you can quantify that in your performance expectations, and then at the end of the year, when you're doing that evaluation, you bring those out and see if they've been met or not. And by the way, you can say to them, you can set the expectation too, hey, in fact, a question I always like in the interview process is what do you do to get to know a new community and to stay visible in the community? And so I would listen carefully to their answers on that and see how they handle that, so that you can get some really good ideas on how they're going to be visible. And you will hear some of them say, I start out my first 6 months, I just kind of walk into somebody's shop and introduce myself. Hey, I'm new in town. This is what I'm doing. I'd like to get to know you and hear your feedback. So,
A residence requirement is just checking a box. That doesn't mean they're gonna be active just because they live here. If you have a metric, and maybe you say, tell us how you're going to do that, that becomes the performance measure and you can hold them to it. But their address doesn't mean they're gonna go. You need a visibility and residency if you're gonna have residency.
one thing I used to do is the first Saturday of every month, I would sit at the local coffee shop. We just call it a community coffee club because a lot of people are intimidated to come in and stand at a podium and talk to you. So I would just sit at the coffee shop and somebody would come in and sit down and we'd have coffee and we could talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. So that was a good way of not only being visible, but really ideally meeting people where they are and making them feel comfortable to have that conversation. We also used to do something called Taking It to the Streets, which I loved. we'd go and have our, because you can have your council meeting anywhere as long as it's noticed, right? So we'd do it in the street, we'd shut the street down, and then afterwards host a block party for the neighborhood, and you know, to get people out, to get people to know who the council members are and things like that. And we would always do it in a place where there was gonna be a public improvement project, so that we could make them aware, hey, this street's gonna be closing because we're rebuilding it or whatever.
That's a cool idea.
And we never did get Michael McDonald to show up and sing for us, but you know, we had everything, right?
Okay. Any other thoughts from board members, council members? I will have to side with Neil. I'm hearing, you know, strong opinions on both sides of the table there, and coming to an agreement would be all right. I don't know what would be the best thing about that. Obviously, we knew, we did hear that ash was never visible in town. We heard that. But I guess for my 2 cents, if we limit them just to, I would say at least maybe I don't know, maybe the school district. There are some people who just want the country life and just want to live out in the country, maybe, but within the school district, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I think we can, the skies are the limit. We can set our expectations however we want to, I think so. Good discussion. I think everybody brought up valid points. So it's kind of what the expectations are gonna be, whatever you guys think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, you said there's, you know, I don't know how it's listed in there, I'm not gonna go through it, but, you know, like, hey, you know, living in town would be ideal, we'd love to, but, you know, but if you're, you know, even close would be okay, you know, and it kind of gives some wiggle room, you know, because I understand the people that would like to have them in town. I think that does stem from Ash having been told or saying he was gonna move to town, never did. I think a lot of that stems from that, but,
The other thing, thinking about the candidate pool that you have right now in place, and some of them being, you know, from the greater metro area, and given, you know, that where we are with interest rates and those kinds of things, if you decide that you want to implement some sort of residency requirement, I might also suggest the idea of writing into the contract that should you move, you have to move into town, kind of thing, versus requiring them to move right away. You know, when you have people who are, you know, gonna end up with a higher interest rate, et cetera, that could be another option for you, but still setting that expectation of being visible in the community.
I would just hate to have that be a deal breaker. You know, if we have a very, very good candidate and they're like, nah, I really don't want to move, I would hate to have that be a deal breaker, where that could be in the negotiation process. And maybe like what you said, if you do move, we strongly urge you to move out here. So that might be a good option.
But on the
It has
flip
no
side,
teeth though, it's just talk. It's like what it was 30 years ago. There was requirements for that person to move here 30 years ago. There's no documentation, no motion, and nothing in the job description. So now we sit here and we're in the same boat. That's the only thing that,
Well, the teeth, you put it in their employment agreement.
yeah, I was just saying in the job posting itself, like if it's added there clearly up front, there's no question that it's there. If, you know, the board and the council were to agree on it and make a motion to add it, then it's clear. And it's up front versus, you know.
okay, so, it does say city residency preferred and participation in community events is required. Relocation allowance is negotiable.
That might mitigate your interest rate
Mhm.
Right, or just moving costs, whatever, sometimes that's an attraction.
again, I would hesitate to put, if you ever move, you have to move to the city, because again, my dream house is 20 miles the other direction, but it's still a 1 hour, 40 or 45-minute drive to Stuart to work. you're gonna keep me from moving to my dream house just because I gotta live in a house I don't wanna live in town, or into a fictitional circle just because it's what we like. I mean, I just don't see the point of requiring that when we can just put it in there that some level of participation and being visible in the community, whether that's 50%, 2/3 of events, is tied to your performance, your job performance. I mean, that's how you do anything. It's just tied to your job performance. Why are we putting a leash around them and saying, you have to live in this circle?
Right. And if the council or whoever doesn't feel that they're living up to that expectation in their performance plan, that's where it's dealt with.
And that could, that's a mark against them,
It can affect raises, it
Affect a
can
raise,
affect their
I mean-
employment, so.
Also could putting that in there where you have to move to town, that could affect their appointment. So everything could affect their
But I mean,
employment.
there's a way to deal with that, if they're not involved, if you don't feel they're involved enough in the community, you have a way to deal with that in their performance.
But one's
Plan.
clear and the other one's subjective, right? You don't have measures on the other one.
You
That's
can
all I'm
make
saying.
measures. You
Okay,
put it
what
on
would
your
that be?
metric.
What is
Just what
that?
we talked about.
So,
We have attendance rosters from X amount of meetings. We have all, like, it's their job to show they're meeting that metric. And if they don't, then you have a performance issue. I feel like, we don't know these candidates' home. What if they have kids in high school that they just want to finish out their high school in their school district? Or what if they have a custody agreement that says, they can't move? I just feel like we could lose a really good candidate because is it that we want them to live in town and pay taxes, or is it that we want them visible? I do think it's
I
two
think the
separate things.
public feedback on that I've ever received is if they're here and living here, they're going to be active, more so than not. The chance of that is much higher than living in Des Moines and coming out here to work.
I think I would respectfully, I just see it
No,
from the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we draw the line? Are we gonna require them to live in the city? If they have kids, we're gonna require their kids to go to school here? I mean,
We don't require councilmen or utility boards
Right,
or
that's-
to go to
that's
events.
that's not even possible, right? The code allows you to
well,
add that to, the code allows you to add that to a job description. It's nothing to do with kids.
I guess I'd like to take a step back from this specific topic, or this specific job description, and talk about, we've kind of hinted at the job performance stuff. I don't recall ever having a very strong
How are we doing on that?
performance review in all my years on the council, or
Right.
and none of the job description pieces are gonna be workable if we don't have a good performance review. So is that something that you reviewed as part of your analysis too? Okay.
And part of it, in that report, you'll find a draft evaluation form too.
That's what I
Job
mean.
descriptions.
I think you will, several people will recall that I tried to get that up, and it
Yeah.
met with deafening silence from the rest of the
It's
council.
been brought, I know it's been brought up over the years at different times, and it just kind of loses steam and goes away, and that's how it was. But I want a candidate that is happy about having performance reviews, that
Correct.
enjoys it, wants it because they want that feedback.
Yeah.
We just had someone before that wasn't their thing, and no one in either of the entities really pushed it to where, but in all of the things that we're talking about from our job description stuff, whether it's this topic or another, we need to be robust in what we do, so that we can, have a real relationship with this person and not just someone in an office that we meet and converse with on a monthly basis,
I think that also with a performance plan, it's hard to have a good performance plan without a job description, and I don't think we've had that for anything. Every performance plan I've ever had, it started with my job description, specific to me. Somebody in the same position as me might have different responsibilities. Mine was specific to me, I had specific goals, specific things I was expected to meet. And we haven't had those job descriptions. I think that's the key to the whole performance review process, is you have to have job descriptions, and they have to be well-defined for each employee.
with year-to-year goals that are updated for
Correct.
that specific year. What do you want to accomplish?
Correct, for that year and that person specifically.
Are you seeing candidates that are coming through that have good experience in that?
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
I have 3 in particular that I think are just rock stars that are going to knock your socks off.
I think the steam that it's always lost, or the deafening silence, I I think that the directors of our departments are taking on that drive. They want them. And I think they're pushing for job descriptions first. I think they're pushing for performance evaluations where maybe in the past it fell on deaf ears.
Well-
And there wasn't the ability for department leaders to kind of speak up and say, we want this. They had to go out on their own and do it. So I would like to think it's a new day, and hopefully the energy keeps going, and soon there are job descriptions and performance appraisals based off of those. So I don't want to be Pollyanna, but I do feel like there is some momentum that I haven't seen before.
And I'd like to think that these candidates are probably used to that now anyway, so they're probably used to a good structure, job description and performance evaluations every year, and so, yeah.
One thing this conversation makes me think, I'll make sure and tailor some questions in the interview questions that I provide to you for the panel interviews about, how do you conduct performance evaluations? How do you, support somebody to do better? Or how do you praise somebody? All of those kind of things.
Right, and performance evaluations would also mean the council and potential utility board reviewing the city administrator, since they would fall
Yeah.
under our supervision.
So that leads to a question I have. I don't see it in this report, but in that review that we got that was updated in our email, it explained how the relationship with the city, the utility board, and employees. And from what I gather from that, the employees are totally city employees. The decision to hire, do anything is totally the city council.
The city administrator?
Any of them. From what I saw, they're all city employees.
Yeah, I would look at them all as if
Because you
they're.
said that was based on state law.
They all fall under the umbrella of the city.
Okay.
The city, their paycheck comes
Well,
from.
there's some statements in there about how the utility board had no authority to hire, fire, terminate, these employees. Right, I'm just wanting some
Yes.
clarification, because,
That's not accurate, because Greenfield has the exact same codified board that we have. They are completely exclusive from the city.
Right.
They don't interact at all, not one staff member overlaps. And now, Guthrie Center and Winterset do share similar to what we do, but they're also involved in hiring and firing and all of that. It's
that's why I
just-
wanted clarification.
Yeah, no,
'cause
I'm
that-
with you. That's why I made those calls, because of the same comment.
So, with regard, I want to speak specifically to the city administrator and why I put the little dotted line there in the draft organizational chart, because your code specifically says, hired by the city council.
It does, you're right.
And, okay,
Yep.
so that's where that comes from. And then the code also says, aside from police chief and fire chief, that the city administrator oversees all the employees. That's where that's coming from.
So indirectly, it
So-
kind of, I'll get you to that, okay. We had two legal opinions on another discussion, unrelated to this, to add clarification for scope, because we don't have good, like you mentioned, some job descriptions and details. And both of them found that there's, utilities is a separate entity, allowing some, things in shared duties, you can't, be involved in certain things, so that conflicted with this, which is why,
But that's where that comes from. It came from your municipal code,
Sure.
just saying that that's who they report to.
Wanna
So
bring this-
I don't know if that is in conflict with other things or not, but that's where that came from.
Gotcha.
I do want to bring this back on the rails here and just stick with the residency requirement, so we kind of got off topic a little bit, but, so what do you want to do? Do you want to take action on that, or do you just want to wait until we go through the interview process and just take it case by case? I think there's a lot of options that still need to be figured out kind of rather quickly, because the interview process is coming up quickly.
One question I also had, it says, what was it? I don't want to. It's like relocation allowances is negotiable. Now, I know you called me and talked to me about kind of what type of, I don't know, person I was looking for on that. And I don't remember any kind of an allowance being talked about at a meeting. I don't know if it was discussed at any meeting that we were going to allow any kind of, so how did that come about?
That is a pretty typical, relocation allowance is pretty standard. And so that's why it was put into the profile that was then submitted for approval,
So submitted, I didn't.
for circulation, for
I didn't
approval.
see this at all until,
Okay,
you know, you called me
right,
and that was it. I figured we were going to have a meeting like this
right.
and kind of go forward and discuss that. So it's kind of like, well, now there's a budgetary thing in there.
Right.
And I don't know, did you guys vote on it? Anybody?
Who approved it?
Who
The
approved
salary
that?
range is on there, is that flexible as well? Or like, you know, based on experience, is there a caveat or a bullet on it?
Yeah, that is, I mean, that is set by you, but I had submitted the profile and discussed it with the mayor and before issuing it.
So it's a fiscal decision, so it should come from the council and then the board.
But doesn't it-
That's when you hire someone.
Yeah, doesn't it
Well, that's
say
a
that
range
it's
that-
negotiable?
The range in the job description is posted out there, which is a fiscal approval, I would assume. And so that's what I was saying. Kim, you had approved that?
No.
On the board's behalf?
No.
I would just think, being a council that has the fiscal responsibility, we should talk together and come up with this instead of having it set for us. Because if something's gonna be set for us, we don't need to be here. You know, if somebody's going to do that. That's why I was kind of surprised, like, I didn't know we were going to allow, I get it, it's typical. That's fine, but let's discuss it first to make sure that's something that everybody wants to do, instead of just throwing it in there. And then the salary range, I know it's negotiable, but I didn't know what the salary was. I did not get anything after the phone call. I was expecting this meeting to be kind of going over this, and, well, what are we gonna put in it, you know, and, you know, all those, like the, town residency and all
Well,
that
any
stuff, so.
recommendation or proposal that the utility board would have, I think would have to be a recommendation to the council to add. Because it's the council, according to our city code, it's the council's hire. Now, whether we marry up and continue sharing the financial cost at 60% that the board is obligated for is another discussion. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
that's,
You don't pay 60%,
We pay 65.
but another employee you pay less, so it all equals out in the end.
The difference is the health benefits. For some reason,
It's
we
always
pay,
been
we pay
explained.
zero of Ashley's.
if you have the numbers up, we're paying 60% of that position.
But of other positions, you pay less.
And the only reason that we are like that is because one year, the utilities gave all the employees a 12% because they were so low compared to other towns, and the city council only gave them 4%. That's why we pay higher.
And I think when we started this discussion, when we knew Ash was gonna leave, we all knew that we shared cost. I know I went into this thinking that we were going to partner with the utility board in any discussion that came up. That was my feeling. It wasn't voted on or set in stone, and then, look, this comes out, and there was no discussion with the utility board. So, or any kind of, like I said, the relocation thing, the salary. There's no discussion on the council, again, unless you guys had it, because I know I didn't come to a couple meetings. But I looked through the minutes, I didn't see any discussion where we're gonna do this range, we're gonna allow for a thing, and it specifically says in our code too, that the salary of the city administrator is set by the council, nobody else.
Yes, and I will say perhaps I misunderstood when I submitted it, for distribution and approval. And I thought it had been approved, so that's probably my misunderstanding.
And I think a lot of that goes back to the previous meeting we had when you were here, I believe. We had a disagreement between both sides, or kind of a mix between people. Some people are like, we're 6 weeks behind, we just need to go. And some of us were like, wait, we need to pull back and methodically think through this. And so we just kind of came to agreement that yep, we'll start here, we'll go here, you got free reign, go. And I think that, we didn't put enough boundaries around that, and that's kind of gotten us to where we are right now, is kind of the way I feel. I feel it's more on us than you, so we didn't provide enough boundary and discussion to that, and so.
Throughout, or the process now is, Zoom interviews are scheduled for Tuesday, which involves everyone who wants to be involved. Then from that, you would narrow it to finalists. And then at the point there are finalists, we will have done background checks of all of those people. And then once that full day of interviewing is done, when you are discussing it afterwards of making an offer to someone, you walk through the entire draft contract and provide parameters of we want to offer this person between this and this amount for salary, this for relocation, if any, et cetera, et cetera.
And just to add, Marquita did reach out to myself, and we did discuss about the salary. She said that she pulled comparables because they're currently hiring a city administrator and van meter, and we're right there. I feel like we have to be competitive to get a very good city administrator. And she was pulling the comparables, and I was, to be honest with you guys, I was higher than what Marquita's numbers were.
That's what I
That
would
was,
thought too. I'm with you. Yeah, I would've thought it would've taken
Yeah.
a higher rate.
yeah, and
But you've got a caveat on there, right, to
Yeah,
base.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Based
And-
on qualifications.
So I don't want Marquita to feel like she's thrown under the bus here, because she did have that, I want to be honest with you guys, she did have that conversation with me too, and I agreed. It's like, we have to be, we want somebody really good for the city of Stuart, and I told her what because she asked me first, she's like, what was your number? And I told her, and she's like, oh wow, this is where we're working at, and I was like, perfect, there you go. If we are gonna be comparable with other towns, so that's where that, and it might have been some confusion as well too, but, it's not that I give her authorization, it's just, like Mr. Russell said, we felt like, that we was behind the ball a little bit, so we were just like, yeah, Marquita, go, and just, we didn't give her direction right at first, so I don't want you to feel like you're just thrown under the bus, Marquita, by no means.
And with all due respect, but where does our ordinances give the mayor any leeway to suggest a salary?
I didn't suggest that.
You said you gave her a number and you were higher.
Right, we was just talking at that point, I wasn't.
How come that wasn't brought to the council is what I'm saying?
A conversation? I don't need to bring every conversation. No, let me finish. I don't need to bring every, Mike, that's your first warning.
Throw me out.
That's number 2. I didn't tell Marquita what to set the salary on. All we was having was that conversation. I was asking her questions, she was asking me questions. That was it. I wasn't making any decisions. I know my lane. I know that it needs to come back to the city council. I did not want to say that this is the salary range at all.
You will vote on the contract that sets that salary. That gets.
I would like more transparency on stuff like that, so we can all have a discussion, so we kind of know where it's at. Yeah. I don't know about the rest of my council members, if they feel the same way, but I feel strongly that I was put in here to be the voice of the community and see this stuff and discuss it,
I mean, this is kind of, that range is within, it definitely is within what we pay him anyways, so.
I guess
I
I
guess
look
is
at
there
it.
a range that his position currently has, then.
You're never gonna hire anybody for the same rate,
Yeah.
so it's always gonna get more expensive
Yeah.
every time you hire somebody new, so.
While I agree, everything should have come back to us in the end, fits within what we're currently paying.
And it's not the fact that it's the dollar amount, it's the fact that we should be allowed in that conversation.
The council had an opportunity to do this by themselves. if you recall, Mr. Nelson brought that up and said, whoa, time out. Should we try this on our own? And a lot of people, the majority was to hire Thea Management to do the hiring process. And I feel, in my opinion, I feel like we shouldn't micromanage what she's doing. We hired her, let her do her job.
There really wasn't repeated sentiments that she's the expert during those conversations.
Okay, we're getting off topic here and whatnot, but
I mean, going back to residency, I think at this point in time, especially, it'd be kind of a bait and switch. People are already applied, they thinking one thing, and all of a sudden we throw in, oh, hey, by the way, you're gonna have to live here. That's a, bait and switch in my opinion, when it doesn't specifically, it says preferred, but it doesn't say preferred within a range. It just says preferred. We like you here, but.
If I was a candidate, I would read that in the job description and say, if I've got two comparable candidates, I'm gonna pick the one has a commitment to live closer to the community. So, and I think that's reasonable language in there.
So let's put it in the minutes that the council's not requiring residency. So then it's documented, so 30 years from now, when we look back, we don't have to talk.
Well, the council can vote on it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'd make a motion that we do not have any residency requirements, but there needs to be something in the job description and performance guidelines for a yearly review that outline how active in the community they should be. And is that a discussion we have with them or with this group? I don't know. Well, to set that frequency.
Participation?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'd be up to us to decide that, so, yeah, I'd second that.
okay, moved by Russell, second by Cobal. How do you vote? Cobal?
Yep.
Caps?
Yeah.
Ingers?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Okay.
Boy, I don't know. Good question.
Do we
Yeah, right.
vote too, or,
I think we should, so it's on record.
okay,
Yep.
Then I don't even have to worry about it.
how you vote, Crawford?
Wait a second, I mean, this goes back into the, who's primary employer?
Right.
Let's make it,
That's why I
make a
asked, do
second,
we
let's make a
vote?
separate motion that's,
You can make a separate motion to do a recommendation to council or
yeah,
something.
make a recommendation that we require city limit residency, that's my
I'll
motion.
make a motion to, or if you
I
have
just
to
did.
recommend, okay.
I just did.
Recommend.
Did you
I
get that
told you I was
second?
gonna make that motion at the last meeting.
Say it one more time, Brian.
My recommendation, or my motion is to recommend to the council to add city residency to the job list.
Did you second?
No, I'm not seconding that.
Oh, do we have a second?
No, there won't be a second, so we might as well move on. What was your motion, Dan?
I was gonna move that we follow.
It's in the minutes though, right?
That we agree with his motion.
Okay.
That the city voted on, that's where I'm at.
Okay, make your motion. Mine failed.
Do we need to vote or not? All right,
Yeah, make that motion, Dan.
okay, I will.
Second.
Okay, how do you vote, Crawford?
Yes.
Herrick?
Yes.
Belden?
No.
Sherman?
Yes.
ABS.
Gain interaction. Okay, B, shared cost agreement, city and utility employees. So we kind of touched base on that a little bit. We went off track. So give us your professional opinion on that, Marquita. I know you just kind of did, but is there any more discussion with
One
that?
of the things that came up during the admin review was that there are different wage rates for, like in the administrative team, that they get two paychecks, one from utilities, one from the city, which that's what leads to challenges with tracking hours, challenges with, withholdings, things like that. And typically how that is handled is that employees would still get one paycheck from the city, and part of that would then just come from a transfer from the utilities. That's typically how that's handled. And so that's what we were talking about. And it would not typically have two separate wage rates. So that's very unusual.
And you would account for it from the same perspective on the utility side, whether it's a transfer of funds for this purpose or a payroll. I mean,
Correct,
it
correct,
kind of be a little different in terminology or something, but
right.
in practical means. it
Yes.
was-
So did you reach out to Ash on these types of questions at all, to kind of get background, or did anyone?
No, we talked with Sarah, but no, we did not talk with Ash. He was, I think when we conducted, he would have been gone by the time we conducted, yeah.
Yeah, he just
That
left it, he was
part.
more than open and willing to discuss things of how things happen, and there was a question about why, there was a change in our org structure, and you put it in your report, he could have added clarity to that if you would have reached out to him to kind of answer that, but anyway.
Also, in our meeting last month, didn't we, Steve, talk about, is the shared workers still going since Ash is gone? Did it stop then, or is it still going? Am I right? We talked about that?
Yeah, Sarah tried to find minutes that would reflect what the agreement was. And she couldn't find anything specifically on the percentage. But I assume every year the utility board is approving allocations to the city fund for the city administrator's salary and benefits. But it's clear from a legal perspective, the utility board manages the utility, has all the city powers associated with the utility. Iowa code provides it. How you've chosen, it appears, based on Sarah's research and the history over the last 30 years with Ash, is you were sharing the city administrator. He was in essence the utility administrator. By agreement, like we asked, the paperwork goes back to the 90s and it's not real good. If you choose to do that, continue doing that going forward with the new city administrator, whoever that may be, you can have provisions in the contract that address their job duties, including the utility. Both bodies, I presume, if you shared employees, would conduct annual reviews. You've all talked about that. And any other employees that are shared between the city and the utility. And just come up with an agreement that details everything. And that's not uncommon in all kinds of different governmental settings.
Would those shared employees normally do a review with both the city and the utilities in those cities? Or
Well,
would
the city
they normally-
employees, under open meetings, if the city employee calls to do evaluations in closed session,
Right.
which is typically how it's done.
But normally, is that
Both
normally done with the
entities
council?
could
That would
conduct-
only be the administrator that's done that way. Wouldn't everybody else report to the administrator? And do have their performance reviews with the administrator?
That would be typical. The administrator typically
So does that
deals
make
with
them
everything
a
we-
city employee, or do you still share that? I'm just looking at, for us, if they're city employees, we could come to an agreement. Sarah spends 40% of her time on the utility, let's pay 40% of the big number over here that has all the benefits on it. Same thing with the administrator. Those shared employees come up with a percentage. Now, how we set raises, that's something we would have to address, how we set them as two different boards. But that would seem like the simplest answer to me.
That is definitely the most streamlined way to handle it. And then perhaps you could just meet, in,
And it could be
you meet
adjusted.
jointly, you could meet and set those,
Correct.
set those salaries jointly.
Could we treat them more as consultants, and then there's a yearly fee that is decided upon, that's based on their cost, and we charge the utilities that, and does it that way instead of how we're paying payroll, that's more of a consultancy fee back to the city, and the city handles everything on that side, and it just covers some of that benefit cost, and just like any consultancy firm would, you take every bit of the employee in there and you calculate that rate.
But consultants are independent contractors, right? Don't get health insurance?
So I think he's just using
But-
that as an
He's using
example.
Yes,
Yeah.
you treat the city employees as contract, and so you're paying the city to use those.
We're
employees as a
contracting with the
contract
city.
rate.
Essentially, yes.
Yes.
And so it makes
I don't care.
bookkeeping a lot easier, and then it comes down to that hourly rate that can be discussed, that consultancy fee every year for hourly rates, and then we decide that, and it's, to me, cleaner than how we're doing it.
I think a new city administrator
Okay.
hired would probably wanna weigh in on a lot of these recommendations. When the new one's hired, that person will probably.
Correct, I think they would need that discussion if we're gonna determine what portion of a certain employee's actually using utilities, that would come through the administrator, I would think. That's what
Right,
we're hiring.
to help
That's what-
determine what that percentage,
Yeah.
like how much time is
Right.
spent on the utilities and on the customer service,
Well,
right?
just an overall structure of
Right.
maybe this person's 100% utilities, this one's 100% city, and.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly.
I really feel that if, in my opinion, so hear me out, I really feel that the utility side would be probably saving money. And I'm just saying that because how much time, and we don't know, how much time did Ash really spend on the utility side, and look what you guys were paying? If the shared employee, Sarah probably knows exactly how much time she puts forth the utility side, and Ashley. And if you look at a percentage on that, you guys are probably paying way more than what they're doing, their time. You see what I'm saying?
I do, asking Ash, he said sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's more than that. Lisa, I verified that with her, because they've got, similar things, and she said sometimes it can go the other way. I mean, it's very tedious work.
I've experienced with
versus-
my wife is a shared employee, so she has, if her shared amount would go away with, she would stop working in that sharing agreement, that portion of her salary would go away, because that's how it was negotiated with the two entities. So it is a negotiation between the two entities, but you wouldn't want to get into a situation where the utilities side, they no longer want to have this person, but you're still, the city's still on the hook for paying that person that full amount.
Yeah.
It's kind of an extra, extra duty type contract that you're adding in and saying, for this extra piece that you're doing, here's the amount that you get, and so.
Is she a salaried employee?
Huh?
If it's a salaried employee, that's fairly simple. If you're talking an employee that's paid by the hour, I think that gets really complicated.
I think there's I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I think there's an opportunity for the salaried employees. You know what their baseline salary is for the 2080 that they're working per year. And then at the end of the year, if there's overtime that's attributable to the utilities, you could track that in your payroll system and then do a true up at the end of the year with that.
About hourly employees?
For the hourly employees. And or true up quarterly or something like that would be an easy way to handle that.
Is there also a scenario that, because I agree, I feel like I was a little bit surprised with the amount that the utility pays of the salary. So is there a way that it could just be kept track by the hour, for hourly? So if Sarah worked 10 hours for utilities this pay period, and she worked 30 next pay period, could utilities just pay the hours worked instead of this agreed upon percentage that we don't even know if is in the ballpark?
Wouldn't that be hard to manage?
They would have to log their time that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just log your time. I mean,
I think that would be like on a regular basis, hard to manage. But what I might suggest is you take that concept and just track your time maybe for a quarter or 6 months, and then use that as the basis for what that, moving forward. So you basically know, and they probably already have a good idea. Sarah is a tenured employee, and she probably has a great idea of, I know I spend X percentage of my time on utility related stuff, but you could just have them jot that down and track it for a while and verify that and go from there.
And I would also interject that some of the duties that these individuals do overlap at the same time. So if they're taking cash at the cash register, that is a function that they're doing at the same time as a city employee, but also as a representative for the utility board. And there's no way to separate that. So that would be really difficult to do.
I like the time study, because I do wonder now, is the split right? And is there a way to put some data behind? If we're doing this now, a time study might be nice to make sure that we are in the ballpark and one side doesn't feel like they're carrying more of the load than they should be.
Do any of the applicants that you have come from a dual management structure like this, or like utilities and council?
I am trying to think. There's one that might, but I'd have to verify. I'm not sure. But I do have, I know a couple of the applicants have extremely strong financial backgrounds. towns, so.
Can we look at this as, if the utilities was hiring outright someone just to manage our business versus us having a city administrator, would there, if you could look at the market metrics for these types of employees, you would pay, to me, this is a replacement cost type of deal, as opposed to necessarily tracking hours and stuff. So if we were going out and hiring an employee for the utility side, it would cost this. Maybe it's less. And then the city administrator would cost more. And maybe that's the ratio that you deal with. And you kind of look at those metrics over time to determine how you move forward and how this person is paid.
I could probably secure some information for you that with regard to what the pay range would be for like a general manager for utilities. The challenge I have is I don't know that there are many communities of this size that have a general manager for utilities, because that would seem like a duplication of, but we could maybe make some extrapolation from the larger communities' salary ranges.
But does that approach even, do you think that's reasonable? Going that?
I think it would be helpful for the utility board to have that information, just so you know, hey, to get these same services, we'd have to pay $110,000 versus $60,000.
Yeah, so you put in this an administrative manager, a recommendation or whatever? What was that position title?
Administrative Services Director?
Yeah, so that was a six-figure salary expense. So this position's a six-figure salary,
Yeah,
and then
it
you'd
would
have
be
three of them at the same level. So we went from 130-ish to 400, right? By the time you triple that with benefits and IPERS.
Yeah.
You imagine what the tax rate and utility rates would be to figure that one out?
Like the utility.
No, they're not gonna wanna live
It
here,
would
they'll
be a
afford the
six-figure
taxes.
salary for the utility manager. But, I mean, it is helpful for you to know that, like, so instead of paying this amount, we're only paying this amount for that.
For us and the public to understand, hey,
Sure.
it's a good deal that we are joining together forces on this. There's a lot of similarities and there's some differences, but we're doing a good thing by trying to structure our entities this way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. How it's set up may be stale or may have not changed over time, but it worked. And so it's best for the citizens that it's a cost savings to, if it's possible, leave it the way it is if we find the right person for that. I mean, obviously changing or modifying the two paychecks and stuff like that, I get what you're saying.
Because I would say, when you're reporting these wages to the federal government, I'm assuming you're doing it under the city and the EIN of the city. There's no separate reporting for the utility board. So they are essentially being paid by one organization. You're just administratively giving them two paychecks.
Well, if we wanted to start out going forward and staying where we're at, other than there's two employees on this wage thing, we have one employee that's shared, her insurance is totally paid by the city, and the administrator is totally paid by the utility, which I don't understand that. If you divide those up, it really puts that administrator total costs pretty equal, pretty close to 50%. If we took those numbers, if you just look at the salaries now for, let's take Sarah for an example. Cities is 29,227, and utilities is 26,242. Assign a percentage to that, and right now we could move forward paying approximately the same. Is what this sheet reads. Same thing on Ashley's. Equalize this insurance thing, and then we can kind of determine, look at this big line, clear to the right, and if it's 50-50, it's 50-50. If it's 46-44,
I would do this. I would take the two wage ranges, and say, like, if you're getting $29.50 for 25 hours a week, and 26 whatever for 15 hours a week, I'd calculate that out to what that equals out to, and divide, and like for a year, and then divide it by 2080. That would be the new rate. I would take that plus benefits, and then add those up, and then say, okay, 60%, 50%, 30%, whatever that is.
I think that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, I'm
Just
sorry.
adding- we've got a
Did I
total-
just say what you just said?
Yeah,
I'm
we've got
so
a
sorry.
total compensation line on this side,
You
one for the
may not
city
have this.
and one for
We do?
utility. Oh, Yeah, so if you just use those two, like, you just talked about doing the exact same thing I am.
Okay.
Divide your percentages based on this sheet.
Okay.
There's just two employees that, like I said, the city pays 100% of their insurance, and the administrator, they have the utilities paying 100% of that, so you just split those two in half. It pretty much equals out.
Yeah, I just don't,
Yeah.
to me, it's not wise to make those types of changes until a new city administrator's here, but be aware and supportive of recommendations that they may have.
But we could start out at let's put us right where we're at right now. And we can change that down the road, because we need to do this paycheck thing now.
I do it sooner rather than later. I think it's really
So
awkward.
these numbers would remain the same, it's just, we could get this done with one, and have one paycheck. That's what I look at.
I think it's really ultimately a question of how much are you gonna transfer to the city, and then just let them handle the operations of
And
the
see, that's my approach, that's more straightforward. You do a quarterly transfer for payroll, all up, and you agree to some sort of an agreement that we talked about at our last meeting, and have Steve drafted up that says, here are the criteria, and this is what Sarah was trying to look for, that this is what the utilities gets from these positions with documented job descriptions, and here's what that cost is. And then we vote on raises, and we still do the performance reviews and all that stuff, but it's documented, and, you know, we make quarterly to get rid of the two paychecks, two W-2 concept. So, and maybe it's not quarterly, I don't care what it is, monthly or whatever, but it's not a complicated.
Transfers would be good.
What's that?
Quarterly
But
transfers would be
yeah,
good
whatever would
from
work,
a
but, you know,
cash
whatever,
flow's perspective.
when we get a new city administrator, whatever that person recommends to do, that, I think it's great that we're aware of this information so we can support that person.
We all agree on that? Sounds good? Mike?
So is that what?
Exactly, are we agreeing to, that we're going to form an agreement? Basically, that's what we're gonna do, and we'll get the numbers, and we'll have numbers presented to us, because we got a lot of ifs and ands and what ifs right now, you know, so, I mean, yeah, that's what we're gonna have
We
to
just,
do.
at our utility board meeting that Steve was at, he made the suggestion that, you know, do we have something in writing when we started sharing employees? We don't, and I don't think
No, I
there
know.
is.
Right.
That's what
Okay,
I'm saying.
That's
We're
what-
just agreeing that we're gonna have an agreement
Correct.
Yeah.
and go for, so, yeah.
So then it's got more clarity behind it. So is that what the title shared cost agreement? Is that what that?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
supposed
what
to be-
we're
okay.
on, yep.
that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
we appreciate you.
Thank
you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much
guys
for the
so much.
report.
Thank you.
All right. Move on, number 4, possible joint financing options for utility electric substation project. Chip?
So you folks have this bound handout. It's the same material that was handed out at the city council meeting on Monday. So the purpose for the presentation is I was asked to present a request to the city council for the purposes of the north substation of the municipal utilities for improving that substation. I think folks are well aware that those improvements are needed and needs to be upgraded. The request was presented to the city council because they're the body that governs issuing general obligation debt. The proposal then would be that the city would issue general obligation debt, pay the debt service with TIF, and advance the funds to the utilities for that project. I wanted, just for the council members and the city staff, I spoke with Amy Bjork at Dorsey and Whitney today. If the city has any project in the future that you might fund with TIF, get an ordinance adopted in calendar year 2026 for that ordinance. What does that do? Highlights the detail on page 3 of the presentation. That allows you to maintain or keep the $5.40 school uniform levy in your consolidated TIF calculation. That maintains it in there. So otherwise, if you approve the ordinance February of next year, that $5.40 is deducted. So your $30 TIF levy goes down to $24 and change. It's a change. Your TIF is about 65 million right now. That's a change of 300+ thousand per year.
So, Chip, are you?
That's in total. It doesn't apply to existing debt, so that kind of overstates it, I should say.
Are you
Any
talking-
project, get it included in a plan amendment this year and the ordinance approved this year.
Even if it's not decked up? Like if there are some
bet.
things 5, 10 years down the road, you're talking about the urban renewal plan, put that together.
15 years.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
You're out nothing by including them. The only trigger is when you certify debt. You don't even have to certify the debt this year,
Okay.
according to Amy.
Yeah, wow.
Get it, truly, please get it done this year. That'll protect you. And the triggering event is, for capturing TIF is when you certify the debt each year. So, just to go in the presentation behind tab 2, this outlines it's page 6 of 10. If you go to scenario A, I want to caveat one thing that in all those scenarios working through with this, one thing that I failed to include. Scenario A, the utility's been awarded a 2%, $2.5 million borrowing for the $5.7 million project cost. That financing has to close by December 1st of this year. What's also not factored in here yet, Sarah indicates there's just over $500,000 of unspent bond proceeds from your 2017 electric revenue financing that the utility board issued. That's supposed to be spent within 3 years from the issue date, which means December of 2020. I would get that spent as soon as possible. That's for the utility board. So that will offset that 3.1 million in column C for scenario A. That takes the GO bonds paid by TIF down to 2.6 million. And then the following page highlights the net debt service cost. Since I've worked for both entities, I can't make a recommendation. I can point out features of each, but I have to be neutral on this, so please consider that. Column H on page 7 of 10. So why would the council potentially be in favor of issuing general obligation debt for the substation project? That net debt service cost is in column H in the yellow shading at $6.5 million. That compares to scenario B at just over $8 million. Why is that different? You're able to, with TIF, to capture the consolidated levy from other political subdivisions, so that helps as a cost offset to that net debt service cost. What's the other argument for doing this? It'll help lead to lower electric utility rates in the city. Arguments not supporting it. It'll take dollars away from your ability to fund other TIF paid projects. I outlined Monday at the council meeting, you have plenty of TIF to pay for Front Street, White Pole Road, as well as the substation, but certainly Sunday there's gonna be something else. So another caveat, the general obligation bonds will be subject to a reverse referendum for the city council to consider. So if you have 10% of the folks that voted in the last citywide election, they sign a valid petition, they are residents of the city, that would either have to go to a public vote or the utility board would revisit the project and determine if you're ready to issue electric revenue debt for the project. So
I have a question about that reverse
Bet.
referendum, and I don't know if you can answer it. It sounds like there are people in town, they know the number, and they're prepared to file it.
I have a sense there's strong feelings on it.
So my question is, and my understanding is, this would not go on the ballot until November. This doesn't qualify for a special election. So is it just we sit with no motion, forward motion? I know this loan can be signed, right? Without this reverse referendum decision. But everyone sits until after the November election to see what the citizens say. Is that right? Or can motion be moving?
To bring it to a head, you'd have to hold a public hearing. And then if there is a if the majority council supports holding a public hearing on it, then a public hearing is held. If a petition's filed, then it would have to go to a vote in November. The fallback plan for the utility board is to issue electric revenue debt for the balance of the funding. So there's still a path forward for the electric utility. There's just an offset to the cost to consider.
And that's
So
pushing us pretty close to December 1st.
I would encourage you to hold the hearing this summer. You know, it's July, August sometime. Then Because there's a time frame too, Steve might know this, for you gotta get it on the ballot. And that might be in the August-ish time frame.
Yeah, I think by the end of August, so you probably wanna have your hearing well before that.
The auditor said it would have to be, they would have to know it would be on the ballot by the first part of August.
Okay.
So Steve, can you call for a special election if that were to happen?
She said no.
Well, I know, so can you call for a special election?
No, it has to go to November.
Okay, there's.
It's November
so
each
they
year.
cover that. You used to be able to do that for like
Used to.
sales tax or whatever, or loss tax or
They
something.
changed that.
Okay.
Then we're doing-
Is this
To
just
encourage more
because this
participation.
project, is this with every TIF project that where they have this? or-
It's only because of the type of project. If
Okay.
you were using TIF, for example, for the housing the infrastructure out there, that is not subject to reverse referendum.
So when we built
The
this,
public infrastructure aspect, the land purchases were, but streets, water, sewers not.
so was the city hall subject?
It was subject to a reverse
No,
referendum.
There was just no,
Nobody,
no petition at that point.
I think there was rumblings about one, but
Yeah, well, that's fine, but I'm just saying that we've had that in our history, and we've had a lot of projects go through that's always an exposure issue, probably for the pool too.
there has been a petition filed. I know, Gene's not here. I think there was a petition filed. I can't remember for which project.
Downtown.
Okay. And that wasn't subject to reverse referendum as public infrastructure.
So,
Thank you.
does anybody know, besides City Hall, has there been other projects that utilities and the city have teamed up
So,
Yes.
and accomplished?
Utilities did the water main project at the housing development. They did not ask for them to fill out a TIF application or nothing. Seed does the housing development. They have never filled out a TIF application. The city council had asked the utilities to help pay for the city hall. There was no loan agreement. Utilities just offered to do it.
I'm pretty sure that was a unanimous vote when Neil, that was
And
then.
we've got two ex-city council members here that would know all that.
So we had approached the board at that time because they, occupied City Hall and they, helped us. I don't think, was there even a tax rate increase when we did that? Or not?
The
We
City
were
Hall
able to
gets
use
paid
TIF.
100% by TIF.
Was it? Yeah, so that was a huge, project that we tried to, work together on. So that's kind of the same thing, how the utility board's coming back and asking the city for the same type of thing on a substation.
And as of right now, I have found no other entities that deal with the city that has ever had to file a TIF application. And I have, done a Freedom of Information Act form. I filled one out, and I have a meeting Monday, and I will have all my information Monday after that meeting.
Did the council or Matt ask you to fill in?
So, and, let's see.
I'm gonna move this along, like, what's this have to do with you guys asking for TIF? We're kinda getting off rails here.
No.
No, I appreciate you doing your research on that, but what I'm not seeing yet, you guys haven't provided the city council what you guys want. You provided scenarios, and Chip has provided those scenarios to the city council, but you guys haven't asked the city council what you guys want.
You just made me Monday night, you just said that we had to fill out a TIF application. Tuesday morning, I was in here filling one out.
No, you didn't. Matt filled it out.
Okay, I was with Matt when Matt filled it out.
All right, Kim, take a deep breath. All I'm saying is, what do you guys want? Yes, I did ask you guys to fill out the TIF application. Yes, you guys are wanting, but there's scenarios here. There's options down here. The city council doesn't know exactly what you guys are asking for.
Well, that's up to you guys to decide
No,
what
that's-
you
it's
wanna ask
immaterial. We're
us.
asking for $3.1 million in TIF, which is what we asked for 2 months ago.
We're all here right now, we can ask each other.
Yep.
So, in the scenarios, I thought, they have scenarios where you guys just take care of it, and then they had the scenario where we were doing 3.1, so I put on my thinking cap and said they're asking for 3.1. They're
You
asking
guys
us.
are in charge of TIF, so no application should be asked for unless you guys ask for it.
Let Mike
Sorry.
finish, please.
Let me finish. So, I see it as the utility board's coming to us to partner on a project. The only way we can partner is to issue a general obligation bond. It's 3.167 million, 3.1 million, okay? So that's what they're asking for. They've given other scenarios if we decide to not help them, okay? It's pretty clear to me. I mean, can we change that number? That's up to us. We could say, well, maybe we only do 2.5 or something like that. I don't know, but that's up to us. They've come and said, hey, if you do this, this is what we got in a loan, this is what we can do, and this is how we save the taxpayer money. That's all they're doing. All they're doing on it. And I've had people come up and talk to me about the TIF also, but it hasn't been about this project. It's been about us giving TIF money to an outside developer. And when people ask me about the TIF, I explain to them, well, we got a couple options. We can give it to an outside developer, or we could help you as a taxpayer, ratepayer, by building a new substation. We could be a partner and get that done. Then we got our capacity for however many years you guys said it was gonna last, you know, and we've benefited the taxpayer by saving them some money. They go, oh, okay. So then they understand that it's not, there probably are some that just don't want the TIF. I don't know of anybody that would be totally against. They probably have some questions. Two entities partnering together to help them out and save them a little bit of money. Even if it was $500,000, if it could save them that, I'd save them that. You know, instead of just going, well, let me tell you, gas is going up, everything's going up, and I'm gonna dip into your pocket because that's the easiest thing to do. So I know what they're asking for. I know what they've proposed to help make our general fund whole again. And I think it's a pretty good deal, but that's just me, so.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that you were asking. When we came to the April meeting, and I rewatched it because I wanted to make sure I understood, a couple times, Brian, you said, we're just looking at options, we're just looking at options. I didn't hear an ask then. So if there is, and I didn't hear an ask on Monday night either. So I think if you are asking, I missed it, I didn't understand it that way. And I thought these three were still being explored. So what I'm hearing now is
It's right on
that
page, it's right on
you're
page
asking-
6. It's right on page 6 at the bottom.
No, I can read this. I didn't know you were no longer exploring.
And we had a meeting
So now-
3 months ago now about it.
With the same information.
Yes.
Yes. And if you watch
Well,
it,
we are asking now.
yes, thank you. Yes, thank
How
you.
you like that?
Yes, I appreciate it a lot.
We are asking now.
In the way I see it, we
So-
ask and require every other entity to submit an application. We've sat up here for the past hour and a half, say we need to do policies and procedures and follow things, and submitting a TIF application for TIF funds is part of that policy and procedure.
There is nothing that says you guys have asked other city entities to do a
But
TIF
we ask
application.
everybody else, so why is a city entity different?
Because the city owns all the property. So you're asking yourself to do a TIF application to help the utilities or another city entity. They own all the property, so you're doing a TIF application on yourselves.
I mean, if the city wants us to fill
Do you
it out,
have-
we can
do
go
you have
ahead and
that?
fill it out.
Do
It's
you
not
have
that
the
Do you
easy.
have a
TIF
TIF application?
It's not that big of a
application?
deal.
Or Matt?
Sarah has
It's
it.
filled out, okay, so it's,
I guess I
If
don't
we wanna follow proper
understand
procedures,
the,
if that's what they require, let's just go ahead and do it.
We've
Just-
done it.
Okay, great.
We, I got told Monday
Perfect.
night that we needed to do it. We had a meeting 3 months ago with these guys and nothing was ever said. No other entity, that's what I'm saying. No other entity is having to do this but us. And as of Monday night, Corey says, this is gonna be my rule now, this is how I want it done. Well, to me, city council hasn't voted on that, and doesn't the city council have to vote this in if this is what you're going to do? Have every entity have to do a TIF application? Now, if I'm wrong, tell me, But don't the city council have to vote it in? To be able to do that?
If we're going, I would think if we're going to make a public entity do it, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an attorney.
That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
gonna,
asking.
I'm not
I
gonna
don't
play
know
one.
if
I'm not
I'm
gonna play
right
one.
or not, I'm just asking.
Here's the thing though, is if you look at the past projects that's been done, we asked you guys, would you like to participate in Wamble?
Right.
You know, the city.
You didn't fill out a loan after that.
The city hall was a joint effort. And I think it was done, in the spirit of helping the city, and it seems like we're kind of getting to where, what's best for the citizens? And it's almost like we're saying, well, what's best for the city? And the city is what sits right here. And that's it. It's like, if you had a chance to save people money, wouldn't you do it?
And that's what I am.
That's all I'm
That's
asking.
exactly right.
If you don't wanna do it, we can vote on it and vote no, and let people know that you're not willing to partner up with somebody and try to save some money. The final number, that's what they're asking for, but the final number is ours. We can say, well, we only wanna do 2.5, or we could do 3.1 and maybe do short term, right?
Right.
And I don't know how long is, I don't know what short term.
3, 4, 5 years.
So Chip,
You know,
Chip,
So that didn't
The
answer my
purpose-
question.
The purpose in that was to give you time to evaluate the front street costs.
My question is, does the city council have to vote if they're gonna start making city entities, so all the city entities know, does the city council have to do a vote on that? Does it have to be written down somewhere? Cause right now on the TIF application, if you read it, it says nothing about city entities on it.
Okay, I know you're stuck on this topic, Kim, but let's move forward. Let's.
Well, you
keep
told
talking.
me Monday we would discuss
And
it
that-
tonight.
That's your first warning, please don't interrupt me. That's your second warning. Let's move on. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
To understand this request, we're asking for $3.1 million of TIF. The other is funded by the low-interest loan from the state, correct?
So
I just want to summarize this clearly.
So I didn't know how much you had left from proceeds from the 2017 electric revenue financing. That's 556,300 round numbers. So from that 3.1 million, deduct 556,000. That was 700,000 as of June 30, 2025. So some of that's been spent down, which is good. So it'd be updated to 2,611,000.
For our share,
Right.
okay?
If you took it away from that.
If you took it away from
Or
that.
it could be spent someplace else by putting overhead power lines in the ground instead of borrowing that money.
Electric infrastructure.
So be it up to 3.1 million, is what we're asking? Say up to, is that,
That's up to you as a board to.
I'm just trying to frame this up so we get a direct
I
question.
get what you're saying, yeah.
So we're asking for 2.6 and 3.1.
I'm saying up to 3.1, so you guys can make your decisions thereafter. So up to 3.1 million. If we did 3.1, you save the citizens 1.5 million over the 20 years, correct? On page 7
And an offset to that
is the grant, or the donation, not the donation, but
Contribution.
the contribution to the general fund from the utilities to the city to cover part of that shortfall. Net present value needs to be applied to that. So you're comparing a 20-year savings to a one-time lump sum of whatever 250, 500, or 750. So you got inflation and a 3.5% interest income if you put in an IPA, that's state fund. So you figure whatever that is. Is there a way to do that quick? What's $500,000 to,
So I'd round it to 800,000, round numbers,
in 20 years, that's all it's gonna be worth?
at 3.5%.
Well, I'm saying factor in inflation too,
Um,
and 7.
Is that interest on top of what's in there?
That's interest on that.
Okay, so do you guys know what he's saying? Is the utilities gives us a donation. There's an account that we could put the money in instead of sticking it like in a CD that is in a liquid account, so you could use it if you need it. And at the current interest rate, over 20 years, you'd have $800,000 of interest, so about 1.7, almost the 1.8 that if you look at the thing, it says, the 1/3 comes out because of the TIF. So by giving that to us up front, it kind of shores up our general fund, if you saw that, paper here, you know, we started off, back in 2023 at 1.4 million, almost 1.5, and now we're down to just a little over $1 million. So that puts us almost about up to $2 million in our general fund. So it's not like they're just, you know, taking the money and running. They are giving something back to us. And we are saving the citizens of Stuart some money, you know? And I don't want to preface that, and I don't want people to think, well, they're not going to have to raise rates. They probably will. That's just
I mean, that's just facts, we're gonna have to raise rates,
But
but it's
it'll-
gonna mitigate it to a minimal.
Yes,
mitigate
that's-
it. So
Yeah.
that's what, when I started, that was my feeling, is what I was trying to do, is trying to mitigate the cost to
Yeah.
the citizen. That's my
That's why I'm
only
here.
thought. That's my
I'm
only
here to
thought.
work with everybody, you know,
Yeah.
just sitting here, I feel the tension between both of us. You know, the utility board and the council. I'm here for everybody, I'm here for the citizens. That's the only reason I'm here. So just know I'm here working with you guys.
And one
You know, I'm
thing,
not, little
I'm
tit
sorry,
for
Charles.
tat, shove that stuff aside and let's do it, let's get stuff done for the citizens.
Chip, if we have that, if that, truck stop comes in,
Yep.
that of course can't be figured in any of your numbers right now, right? Because we don't know what the value is. I mean, we could presume.
I'd encourage the council to negotiate with the developer.
And that's, I'm not talking about that, I'm not talking about giving
Fair
them
enough.
TIF.
Yep.
I'm saying, if they come and they build a building, there's going to be more value out there than what there is now,
Yes.
okay? So if we happen to give them something, and that's up to all of us to decide, but if we don't give them 4 million, maybe we give them a little bit, or even if we don't give them anything, let's say, that's gonna help benefit the city even more because we'd have that extra value. So when they come, so whatever they build, you know, if they build the great big thing, you know, without us contributing back, or even if they build a smaller one, they said the land value is like, what, 23,000 or whatever?
24,000.
Okay.
They said
The current city
right now.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be higher, so we're gonna have access to that at some point.
Okay, city council, let's move this along. We've had this information for a while. Chip was at our meeting Monday night and went over these numbers. The ball's in your court. What's your proposal? Let's either help the utilities out or we don't help the utilities out and let's move along. We've had plenty of time.
I got a question for Chip here real quick. So, I'm gonna get out my crystal ball here, give it a shake. You know, we know Front Street's coming up. Beyond that, I don't know if we really have ideas of other projects the city's looking at that's gonna be substantial. But, you know, this is something that has been asked to me. So we get that out, we take a look. 4 years from now, we go, we need to do this project. We need more TIF money. We don't have any. Now we're raising taxes instead of the utility board raising rates to pay for the project. Now, I know you had talked about, we could set up an agreement to where it's kind of year by year that we could say, okay, going forward, we can't have you do this. You have to pull out general obligation debt on the electric side to do this. You know, because people already don't understand to this date the franchise fee we put in place to help the utility board. They think it's just going into our pockets and muddying the waters. I mean, that's still a contention over a year
But
later.
To your point, Craig, make no mistake, that is being factored into an electric budget model that he's working on, so we can help set those rates appropriately, but considering that savings. Make no mistake.
Oh,
that
I
is-
agree 100%.
But you're right, it's not
But
done
I'm
yet,
just-
so we don't have to, it's not public yet. So
It's coming
not-
back to that whole, well, the city raised taxes to pay for that, you know, when we didn't have this available. Like I said, crystal ball, I don't know. As a ratepayer, I love the idea of saving $1.5 million. As a taxpayer and someone who's responsible right now for the city's budget, I go 5-10 years from now, if we don't have TIF available and we have to raise our taxes, you know, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul over here. You know, why don't the utilities raise rates at that point and we pull that back? Otherwise, I see benefit, because I'm all about tax savings, or I'm all about savings, so I see that as a benefit. I'm just looking at that crystal ball future, what happens when we have to raise rates because we're out of TIF paying for that project, and we have a project now we need to pay for.
So would you be more inclined to do the short-term financing? Like he said, it was like, what, 3 to 5 years or whatever?
You can pick your term, and the purpose in that is really just the city has a narrow amount of TIF through June 30, 2029. It gets you to past that point, plus it allows you to determine a cost for Front Street.
So,
And all the determinations with the participation of Guthrie and Adair counties,
right.
so.
So what does that put the utilities at risk for then at that point? I don't know what that proposal
If the
was,
coun-
sorry.
I think you'd want to have an agreement if you say, if the Front Street project, and this is, you gotta look to Steve for this, but if the cost for Front Street exceeds X, then the utility board must, the proposal is, let's recap that, so that it's proposing to issue general obligation debt for an interim period for 3 to 5 years. And if you don't have enough, or you're shorting or lacking TIF at that point in time when that short-term matures, utility board would need to issue electric revenue debt to pay off that short-term general obligation debt.
Or renegotiate some sort of dollar savings like we're doing here. I was gonna throw, I don't know if you guys, we've got loans out there too, so that's another, thing to,
The utility board has roughly 2.8 million outstanding.
No, I'm talking about the loans to the city, not loans, but we pay the city X dollars, right? I figured you guys would've brought that up, because we brought it up before.
What was it, 500 and?
It's round numbers, about 400,000 that remains on
Well,
that.
for the loan, but then there was
That's a
contribution, that's a separate thing.
Yes.
So you guys would, I don't know, if you made a contribution of 500,000 and paid us the 400,000, we look at investing that in this IPATE, and, at some point you can talk about that. That's where you're gonna be generating the interest and still have liquid funds. But I guess right now is, you sound kind of maybe like you would like a shorter term, which is fine, that's fine.
I'm good for either. I'm just, putting that crystal ball out there is what happens when that scenario comes up? What do we do as a city council?
Or the state makes some more haircuts like these wonderful idiots
That's
just
all
did.
I'm trying to think of, which.
So my question is, if we have $500,000 or $750,000, why don't we take that off the top of the loan money we need?
And Brian, you had said,
Because it's worth more to them for us to capture TIF.
It's worth more to us
It's a
to have it in
TIF,
general.
it's a TIF value, it's worth.
did anyone figure out what you had to have in your reserves? Because you had said that you had so much in the account, and that's taxpayer dollars. Is any of that money going towards this project?
We have to have, and Chip can answer this a lot better, we have to have reserves on our electric fund, and then there's a parity test.
Yeah.
And so that's what that's based off of. We're sitting on 4 million right now that the city hall and Ash managed very well, and prior boards and everybody else. So we've got money to put towards this project, but it's still much more valuable for us to save the citizens by going through TIF on a portion of it. We got this low interest loan, that shaved $800,000 of interest costs off. And so we've also got, this other 1.5. So, I don't know, I don't wanna spend any more, this does nothing for our community as far as adding people to our tax base. It improves things, but when you flip your light switch on, it's gonna flip the moment they get this thing put in. You're not gonna notice any improvement. That's the difference between the utilities and the city. We still have to do this. We have to. It's not a choice. That's why we've tried to put the franchise fee in place. Because people that are on REC, I'm on REC. I should still have to pay for this improvement because I, frequent public facilities, right? So anyway, that's TIF's more valuable than $1 of utility money. That's the.
Me personally, I wanted to ask the council to do this joint venture if it was understood to be a mutual benefit, understanding that I don't want me personally to put you guys in a bind from a long-term perspective, from TIF scenarios, but also the concept of, from a TIF perspective, if you don't use it in a certain year, you lose it. It's not a fund that's sitting there that will sit for you, but if you don't use this year's allocation, that's gone. So if there's an opportunity for mutual benefit and it works within the different budgets and long-term scenarios, and we have flexibility to make changes over time as different things occur, I'm all for it, and I would love to see you guys participate, and we can continue to have joint projects in the future and
Absolutely.
creative funding and financing scenarios.
There's history there, like the city hall, the building we're living in, we asked the board at that point to participate so we could use TIF, and they helped us out to operate the city's general fund. So that money, is it $30,000 a year? Sarah, is that what it is? Ballpark, something like that. But that's part of the loan agreements or money we owe the city. So if I'm in your shoes, I'll just say this because I don't care because it benefits the public here. So if you ask for that to be paid up front, you're gonna get that live, right? You're gonna get another, is it total balance on the Womble and all those things? So if I was in your chair, I'd negotiate that back, but that's just me. You guys are hurting in your general fund over the last few years. That's the trend. And you got a state government that doesn't like cities, so.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Neil. I think that you're right, it has to, we have to work together. I also appreciate Craig's thoughts on, I am hesitant of the term, and if it can be something that we're not locked into, so that we have the ability to have conversation, I can absolutely get behind it. I cannot get behind something that, you know, is set in stone, and we can't, and then we have an unintended consequence in a few years, so.
So if we agreed to we'd like to move forward, we just want to get to a negotiated deal that makes sense for everybody. Is that something that we can agree to and that I guess, put a couple of people on from both teams to, I don't know how that would look, but are people in a current state with the conversation that they would like to at least make that?
So normally a 20-year term it'd be on that,
You can pick whichever term you want it to be, but yes, often.
but short term, so if you do a 20-year term, when can you pay that off without any penalty?
Probably in the 8th year approximately.
Okay, so even if you
That'll
went a
be following
20-year
year.
term, it's, yeah, you could refinance it in the 8th year, right? But you could do like a 5-year term, revisit it, so would that fall subject to that 5.4 thing if we wanted to refinance, if things were going good?
You'd capture that, you'd maintain the collection of the 540, you wouldn't lose it.
Okay.
If you adopt ordinance this year,
Okay,
in calendar
which
2026.
I think we need to do,
Yes.
that'd be very important.
Yes.
So, I'll throw it out there. I would make the motion, I'm gonna try to word this the right way, that the city participate in the substation with utilities, issue general obligation bonds in an amount up to $3.167 million. In addition, there'd be a contribution from the utility board of $500,000. And we would be able to call that loan of $400,000 that would be put into our general fund.
And final negotiated terms would be voted on before anything happens?
What do you guys think? You wanna say 5 years and get this going, or do we need to talk about, I mean, this is us here, you
You've
know?
already got a motion going, so
Right, and,
Are we able to discuss during a motion?
you can, but
Yeah.
I think Mr. Cobba was trying to like maybe redo a motion, but
it was just the term,
sure.
because,
I think the 5 years sounds good, you know, and I guess my only question would be that up to amount, who negotiates that up to amount? Is that us in the end deciding that up to amount, or is it they need up to that amount and they decide that?
You guys decide.
That's you.
that. You guys tell us.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
5 years, for a term of 5 years, and to be reviewed at the end of that time to either renew it, refinance, or what other options are on the table.
Is the concern on the 5-year TIF exposure, is that what it is, whether there's other projects or whether there's
Right.
changes that
I think
cause?
it's the 20-year TIF.
Crystal ball.
Determining Front Street costs.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it. It should be
So
done.
that way-
We don't know that now.
No,
We're
I-
taking a
I'm
little
just
bit of
asking.
risk. Okay, so, in addition, I want to say, instead of doing the 900,000, can I make a clarification? The 900,000 would be reviewed to put into an iPaid account. We can work with Chip on that and get more information. If not, then it would go into the general fund.
Is that your motion?
I would want that right back.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because it was just like,
There was a lot going on.
And poor Sarah's right in trying to get it all that, and so
Okay, Mike.
we'll read that
You're
back.
gonna have to correct me here.
you're fine.
All my
ducks
I know, it's fine.
For the city to participate in the substation project with the utility to issue general obligation bonds in the amount up to $3.1 million. The utility will contribute $500,000 plus $400,000 to the contribution to the general fund. The bond will be for a term of up to 5 years to be reviewed at the end of that time, and then it will be determined whether to renew or refinance it. And additional clarification that the $900,000 total of the 500 and 400,000 will be reviewed with CHIP, whether to be put into iPay account or whether to be put into the general fund.
Fund. Yes.
Just a couple
It
points.
can be at iPaid and a general fund too.
What's that? Okay, so we have some options there where we can review that.
Maybe cite this option 2 of where you're getting the 500,000,
Okay.
and then the 400,000 is not a contribution, it is the estimated amount owed from the utilities to the city.
The
Just so
pay-
that's
the
clear,
payoffs.
when whoever's here
The
5 years.
loan.
That's
We have.
$400,000 we're no longer gonna transfer to you.
Yeah.
Right.
I will agree to that amendment on that for the
I'm
clarification.
just trying to be
No,
specific so
no,
people
it's
down the
fine.
road don't.
I know what you're doing.
All right.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, moved by Cobal, second by Russell. How do you vote? Cobal?
Yes.
Caps?
Yes.
Ingber? No. Russell?
Yes.
Can it also be added to the minutes that this saves $1.5 million for the substation costs? The residents save 1.5.
At the moment, Brian.
I'm just one documentation, so it's,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
can I have 2 minutes?
you bet.
so
We'll take a 2-minute recess.
Thank you.
Oh, we're almost done. I don't,
You are almost done.
I was gonna say, you guys still have a meeting.
Pretty much all of the. That's pretty much taxed us out, and some, we gotta.
You need a raise. We need more money.
Sure.
Do we owe you?
After I'm dealing with it.
It's been out there. We get captured in New York, so if we don't.
That's what the engineer gave the board about the substation, so.
I've probably seen a few of these already.
The county's refunding them, so they're movable.
First year. So, talk about dry. It was dry.
Yeah, once that starts falling off, that's gonna put us in a better place, and we don't need to push it back up to that amount. This saves us. That's too
That's okay. I'll go
That's
home.
what be dehydrated and can't come to work tomorrow.
All right, let's get this going here. We already had a meeting this week. Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Full 2 minutes.
No, you're quick.
No, it's not on our agenda.
You read from it.
No, that's right.
Okay. Last one, number 5, Deputy Clerk Sarah Stouffer, wage increase, city and utility. There are a few months ago, I proposed that we increase Sarah's wages by $5,000 since Ash was retired and gone. And it was requested. Can't remember what council member, maybe Mr. Nelson, just asked if this utility would pitch in, but here we are, after the conversation with Marquita, we're kind of stemming back to all this again. So that's why this is on here. So it's up for discussion. It's something that we can hold off on until that city administrator, like Mr. Belden was saying earlier, and just wait. Or we don't have to take action on this, but unless you guys do. Go ahead, Mike.
I just would echo your comment on that, because I know at our meeting earlier this week, we had another potential increase on that. And I think it is important that we don't get too far on any kind of employment thing. We don't get in there until we get our city administrator in place. Because I thought we hired an employment attorney, didn't we, at one point, to do like HR stuff? Okay, and I think our administrator, can work on salaries and stuff, but they can also work with that employment attorney on like policy books, handbooks, all this other stuff too, instead of us getting into it, because I know from experience, when you get into personnel stuff, it can get very,
It's muddy.
it's worse than mud. Yeah, so I would just echo your sentiment that we do wait, but again, that's just me.
Yeah.
I have something. According to the code book 18.02, powers and duties, general, the clerk, which Ash was the city administrator, he was also the city clerk, plus he was also the city treasurer. The clerk, or in the clerk's absence or an inability to act, the deputy clerk has the powers and duties as provided in this chapter, the code of ordinance and the law. So that is part of her job as a deputy clerk, but also, since Nadine's working from home, Alan and Ashley and Sarah, with Ash gone, Nadine working at home, they're all three working. And nobody's bringing anything up about Alan and Ashley. Why should we leave them out?
And again, I think that's why we
But I think we
yeah.
should wait till there's
Yeah.
a city administrator.
Yeah.
But nobody brings Alan or Ashley up, and they're doing just as much.
So, yeah.
I mean,
City
my
administrator,
feeling is
yeah.
if we do one, we need to do all three.
In the day-to-day activity currently, does the buck kind of stop with you, other than these boards, like
Yes.
with Ash gone?
Yes.
And to me, that's a recognition of how she's differentiated from the other employees.
And from her previous, she's acting city clerk, she's acting as our city clerk at the moment,
Yes.
not as our deputy clerk. She's acting as it's all on her shoulders, like you said.
Now or shortly in the future, and what that amount is, I just want us to potentially recognize her for stepping up in this time of working with Marquita and taking this extra job duties. I mean, same job duties, but it is more work for her right now. Also, when we get a new city administrator over both entities, it's not just like it's gonna be a piece of cake walking into that role and, kumbaya, they're both in synergy. Sarah's gonna have a tremendous amount of work filling in the new employee on all the things that go on in this job. She's gonna be the right-hand person throughout that whole integration process. And I feel some additional stipend increase in her wages makes sense. That's my personal opinion. I'll leave it to you guys to discuss.
If I remember right, I don't remember when, but that's probably a year ago, Ash even recommended back then to give her an increase, and we tabled it, and like a lot of things, it just evaporated into the air, never to be discussed again.
So are we just talking on the utility side here tonight? Is that what we're
That's
talking
on the
about?
agenda,
Yeah, that's
isn't it?
something, yeah.
We got two agendas.
Yeah, it's not a reflection, it's not anybody saying you don't deserve it or anything like that, but Monday night, we had an employee that's also taken on extra duties that's not in the job description, and we wanted to table that, so for consistency, what our council rules and stuff that we got handed out, it says we need to treat every employee the same, so if we're gonna table one, we need to kind of table it all. And I'm sure when we get somebody in here, we'll be more than willing to revisit that and get that going, because I agree, when you get extra duties, you should be compensated for that. So,
No action needed?
I want a motion to table.
I
What's that?
can second that motion to
Okay,
table.
a motion to table for me, I don't know about the board, so they'll have to do
So
the.
what was your motion?
Motion to
table.
table.
Okay.
Moved by Cobal, second by Caps. How do you vote, Cobal?
Yes.
Caps?
Yeah.
Ingers? Russell?
Yes.
Okay, how do you vote, Crawford?
Why are we making a motion to table?
Just so it's in the record, I think.
Harry?
Yes.
Belden? Sherman? Amy, yes.
Sounds good. Joint meeting adjourned.
We're gonna take a couple minute break to get situated, about 5 minutes. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm around her about every day. She's doing very, very well under the circumstances.
7:38, we'll come back.
Deep sneak out already?
He did. He had enough fun.
Yeah, no, like I said,
What do you have?
Big dog? Yeah. How are you? Yeah. It's about supper time. It is. Yeah, you want, I'm sure it's snack.
I got a contract.
Bedtime here before long. Getting old nowadays. Yeah.
That never should have taken that long.
Yeah, great. Mike.
When I worked in Rebellion, we never had a meeting that was over a half an hour. And I realize that's a joint meeting, so.
This one, you can do that pretty fast.
Process down, or it helps us out. I was just trying to get to the point of where's your I almost asked
So Dustin,
about negative arbitrage.
isn't that, do you have another large electric project that you would use to pay with those proceeds?
On top of the substation.
Yeah, Pat, do you have another electric projects that you could fund with that?
Well, we have more than just the substation. We have quite a bit on the south side of town where we need to go in and improve the system quite a bit. So that can be talked about if we, you're saying
It's taken us 4 years to get to this
I
substation.
could use a new truck, Jim.
So you're driving home for lunch.
Well, that's true, but it would be nice if I had a nicer looking truck to do that with.
What's that?
You just asked for a nicer looking truck.
Oh, I get one too then.
My comment is, remember when all small towns drove a rusty out of a truck and you could barely read City Street? And nobody gave a shit. And now everybody wants a shiny truck.
Those days are over now.
Here's my thing, we're trying to keep up with everybody else, but we don't talk about our budget. keep up, we're gonna pay the same as everybody else in every fucking job, but we don't care how much money.
Nobody got to three.
Not every house, every house. Yeah.
First time I knew about it.
And then maybe that would have been 3.
Don't you think you're gonna start using that on me?
Buddy, I wouldn't use it on her home.
No. No.
I don't know if we even want to hear about this.
I told him he didn't need to.
Oh, gotcha. No, it's fine. I just,
This is what we talked about tonight, so
Because really, what do we got to do here?
this is just no action.
More stuff.
You're gonna love it. Very introductory in nature.
I don't think kids do that anymore. They just bring out
Oh, it's like a, yeah, just.
Stuart Municipal Utilities Council board tentative agenda, Thursday, May 14, 2026, 5:30 PM, but it's 7:40. Okay, roll call. Sherman.
Here.
Belden.
Here.
Harry.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Avy here. Okay, consent agenda. Minutes of regular meeting 4/14/2026 and special meeting of 4/29/2026. Financial statement as of 4/30/2026 and bills as presented. We have a motion.
The only thing I'd add to that, I'd like to see that sharing savings deal be transferred monthly instead of yearly. I checked with Chip and that's fine as far as a process, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So instead of showing it separately, he's putting it into his electric budget model, whatever you call it. So you're able to show that as, you show it as revenue or what? Or indirect expense?
Offset to expense.
Okay. So I would add that in the motion, that we transfer that monthly, not yearly. So anytime he's picking something up and trying to figure out where we're at, he can figure that out.
Is that your motion?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, how do you vote? Sherman?
Yes.
Belden?
Yep.
Harry?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Avy, yes. Public forum? Nobody? Okay, number 6, electric rate increase, financial advisor Chip.
So I'll be very brief on this. What the handout does, it presents, it's electric, but it's, there are covenants that are in place with regards to your 2017 electric revenue bonds. On page 2 of 8, one's a rate maintenance covenant. Essentially what that means, you have to maintain, there's a legal covenant with bondholders that you maintain user rates to produce $1.25 in net revenues for every dollar of debt service.
And debt service
Growth.
is payments, right?
Principal and interest payments.
Okay, not balance, okay.
Yep, it's a year, so it's an ongoing, it's a cash flow calculation. Your first gross revenues electric fund, first pay operating expenses such as purchase power, staff, employee benefits, then you pay debt. After you pay debt, you pay capital outlays. That's how the covenants are worded in your 2017 bond resolution. If you issue additional debt, you have to meet that same additional, it's called an additional bonds test or parity test. Your electric fund produces $1.25 for every dollar of proposed and existing debt service. So that becomes important. If you flip to page 3, I think your audit has had findings in the past 3 fiscal years for that the net revenues are not sufficient. I want to just point out, I don't think that audit is correctly calculating the net revenues. It's calculating capital outlays as a operating expense and that's not how the funds flow in the bond resolution. So that, just want to caveat that. I get in the next pages, this is just page 4 of 8. That's your 3 years of history for operating revenue on the first page. Page 5 of 8, this is what the actual net revenues are for debt. I exclude capital outlays from the operating revenues, operating expenses, because they're paid after debt's paid. Row 34, that's your historic net revenues for debt. That's different than what the audit says. I would, however you want me to be involved with that, and maybe you don't want me to involved, your auditor's gotta count that differently, because they're being more onerous or more penalizing toward the electric fund than what they need to be. They need to count those capital outlays. It's one-time expenditures that last more than 1 year. That's the essential definition of a capital outlay.
What are the consequences of their audit findings?
If you take it to an extreme, the bondholders could sue you to increase user rates. The auditor.
That's a drastic.
That's super drastic. It's the super extreme. It probably won't happen.
So is your rate at row 49 trending from 1.32 to 1.27? So
It's
we're
narrowing
moving-
down.
We're getting right there. We're going
You're right there.
Right in that direction. And that doesn't include that franchise fee savings, right?
Not yet. So that'll be better. It'll be benefited because your expenses will be reduced by the offset from the franchise fee of 80,000 or so a year. So that's what we'll work on for the June meeting. I'll keep flipping through here. Page 6 of 8. This is your existing debt service from 2017. Column H, the annual debt service principal and interest is about $415,000 per year. To meet that 1.25 times or 125% test, your net revenues have to be 500 in column K, 516 to 520,000 per year. Balance on the existing debt as of today is roughly 2.8 million, as noted at the bottom center. Next page, page 7 of 8. If you factor in just the Iowa Energy Center loan, in addition to the 2017 debt, your net revenues for debt service from the electric fund in column P have to be about 760,000. And that it's tied in those gray shaded rows where you have overlapping debt service payments. So that's where it's high, then it drops down thereafter. We can't change the structure on the Iowa Energy Center loan that's in the center of the page. It's level debt for 15 years.
And that's 15, it cannot go 20, right?
Nope, they won't.
So, question, this is only the 2.5, right? Or does this include?
Only, yes.
So we have to have coverage of 760, if I'm reading this correct?
Now, an offset to that will be the franchise fee, so
But I'm just
that's
saying,
what
we're
the
going
model
from
will factor
530,
in.
we're going from 530, if I'm understanding this right,
That's
tell me if
right.
I'm not, that's fine. Row 2 or 3, you're at the unshaded in P,
Yep.
right? You go from 530, you're going up by a third to 760 at a peak, right?
That's
So-
right.
So that's only gonna cover a third of that increase. The rest is gonna have to come from rates, and that doesn't touch that still does not touch the bond that we pay for the city that we just voted on, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what can you do? And this is what I'm working on for the June meeting. The 2017 debt is callable as of today. It became callable March of last year, March of 25. We can shave off some payments from electric fund cash on hand. We're talking about a lot of electric fund cash, and I'm sure Pat's maybe getting concerned. One scenario that we had with financing the substation had $1.5 million of electric fund cash being contributed. That was in from the scenarios from Blair from late last year and earlier this year. To reduce the electric fund rate adjustment, let's perhaps apply some cash. Look at column D for the principal amounts, and just obviously focus on the future payments. Shave off some of those principal payments so that we don't have to have as much net revenues for debt. If we pay off the debt now, no longer outstanding, we don't need to meet as high of a debt service coverage calculation.
Just, and I'm not trying to be argumentative on this, but
That's fine.
one thing that I gleaned from Ash that he was fantastic at was building reserves, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy put $7.5 million away between the water and the electric. Is there a scenario that you can consider where you take that money, you put it in your pocket, and you go stick it in an iPaid account, and you estimate interest income off of that, you don't use cash, we leave the principal alone.
You can do,
I'm just
I'll be
asking.
honest, you guys don't need me involved in that. You can do that yourself as a
Well, we
board and
trust
with
you.
your staff. I don't need,
Okay, that's fine, I'm
I
throwing
can
that out
do
there.
enough.
Is it feasible, what I'm saying is, instead of spending that money, is it more feasible to put it into a secure savings account like that and use the interest towards these payments, right? That's what I'm trying to get at, even from the water fund, even interest from the water fund, can you
Interest
do
from the
that?
water fund
You
can't.
can't,
No,
it's
here,
mutually
no.
exclusive, okay.
Yeah.
Even the interest is,
Isn't there legislation being passed or has been passed that caps the percentage of the amount of your reserves that you can invest in IPay?
It was proposed, that one, I'm not sure if it passed or not.
Okay. And when you invest in IPay, I went to their website and they did have a caveat that said that they do not guarantee a return or that they won't lose a portion of your money. They've been performing very well now, but that doesn't mean that they will forever.
how long have they been around?
Several decades.
Yeah, and this is used by hundreds of
I
public
think
entities.
it's saying, you're saying they're not FDIC insured, but your bank is FDIC insured.
But only insured up to 250,000. So, I mean, 7.5 million is not insured either. I'm just saying, so even the interest income off of a reserve still cannot be used to supplement the other?
No, it's, you got separate funds.
Yeah, but if
Yeah.
we pay down the debt, that helps us meet that 1.25. We're lowering the big number.
That's right, helps offset your rate increases.
So by paying off debt,
I get it, I understand. I get that, I just don't.
It
when
might
you
keep our
increase debt,
increases
you wanna-
lower.
When you increase debt, you'd wanna have more in reserves is what you'd want your cash to continue
Oh,
to increase.
yeah.
And so we're gonna, what's our total debt on this existing one?
2.8 million.
So we're gonna triple our debt and we're gonna cut our
No,
reserves.
it's not
back.
tripling.
Well, 5.7, you're gonna go up 2 times, that's triple what you got now. So all I'm saying is we're gonna go up, I'm just leery of burning up reserves, that's all I'm.
I understand. Yeah,
Cause usually if you're gonna have more debt, you're gonna want more in reserves.
that's right. I see your point. Valid point.
Side question, curiosity.
Yep.
When we participate in a project like what this building was, is it an automatic split of 50-50 out of, half of what we participate in is gonna come out of water, half is gonna come out of
Good question.
electric?
There you go.
That's totally board determined.
No,
Good idea.
Okay.
it's based on the
Was it?
project. So like with your All Saints participation, most of your cost was in electric.
But he was asked about the buildings.
City Hall.
Right, but I'm just saying, the projects that the city and the utility have cooperated on the
Yeah.
past, the payment and the way that it comes out of utilities is based on what it goes towards.
Yeah,
But how did City
But how
Hall?
would City
How
Hall,
would
cause
City
it
Hall?
doesn't, it's a construction project.
He's asking if,
I would have to look up the line account that it was paid out of.
Gotcha.
I don't think I have that with me.
But his point is to reallocate, right? There's a reallocation option with that interest income to supplement, instead of taking cash. Anyway, Ash was great at that.
I'm just curious.
No, it was a good
If
question.
there are things like that.
Possible, but I don't know what that agreement talked about with City Hall. It's crazy, I don't know that.
I want to be more like Brian tonight.
It can only take one.
Thanks a lot.
This road can only handle one ride.
Okay, that's all I got. So, more to come at the June meeting.
Okay, hold on a second. Something I thought of when we're still voting on this other deal. I should have brought this up. The council was very gracious, willing to work with us on this. And I would ask for your ideas on this. So the utility spends $900,000 of their $4 million in reserves just to give to the city. That's before we retire any debt, before we put money towards a project. So we already spent 25% just giving it to the city, right? And they're helping us out by reducing our debt costs. I get that. However, in 5 years, when we're all gone, there's a new group here and they're reassessing this stuff. They got their money up front, but we've got 15 more years of a debt. So if they change gears, we've already paid our risk is 900 up front, and we have 15 more years to realize our benefits. Well, I don't mean it bad. I'm not saying it has ill intentions. I'm saying we need to mitigate that as part of this.
By keeping.
To save the citizens $1.5 million or $1 million, whatever it is net, that needs to be covered too, because.
on the other end, I think our rates also need to reflect that there's no guarantee it's going beyond 5 years.
Or have some plan, like,
Well, I mean, yeah, we might be a little higher on the increase end on the front, because there's no guarantee that after 5 years, we're not gonna, I mean, then we're back to big increases.
It might come back to electric revenue debt in 5 years, to say it another way. Yeah,
So I
you're right.
I think we need to consider that in our rate.
Valid point, I don't like it, but.
No, I don't either, but like I said, we've only got,
Don't wanna do this
We've
more
got
than
for 5
once,
years,
and if
so-
we're gonna plan, we might as well plan it right, so. I don't like that, but,
if it
It's
works out,
accurate.
we're gonna be lower on our increases on the back end if it so. I'd like to consider that.
the thing about the city side is you can lower the tax rate, the utility side, has there ever been a point where they've lowered a utility or water rate? Never, right?
No.
You never hear of that.
It's not a good idea.
So, no, I'm just saying, after debt's retired, let's just say this 2017 debt falls off today and our parity test is fine, we should in essence reduce our rates, because we'd have a better profit margin.
The substation is only the beginning of
No,
electric
I
system
get that.
projects you
I'm just
have,
saying,
so.
we're not returning any value back to the back to our citizens, whereas a city can do that. When values increase, they can lower their tax rate. We don't do that.
Value for electric ratepayers because you're improving the reliability of the system.
No,
You are creating
I'm
value.
with you on that. I'm just saying we'll never get back to the point of lowering it, so I'd go on raising prices.
If you're ready for the next item, I'm happy to answer questions on that, or I can.
Okay, electric substation project.
So, Energy Center loan has to close by December 1st. That's all I've got on that, so I
Do
think
you
the
have a
rest.
date where we have to have everything done as like a drop dead date? From us, like a vote on steps or DGR agreements or whatever? I mean, we got a big vote from the council tonight and very appreciative of that, but what does that do for, you know, that deadline?
I'll come back with electric utility rate study model information at your June meeting, and then you're gonna need time to digest that. I would say try to make a decision, and please hire DGR at your June meeting, please. They have to get going on this project.
I think that.
If I would ask anything of
The
you
only agenda
in the next
tonight
10
was-
years, please engage
We
them.
got the vote tonight that we needed to know where we're at. I
Fair
don't,
enough.
I have no
Is that B and
reservations.
C?
I believe so, yeah.
Is
Is that
that
correct,
right?
Sarah?
B and C, that's what he's talking about, higher
Oh,
DGR.
yeah, okay, sorry.
So can we make that motion now?
Wanna
Should
do
we
that?
make it now?
Well,
I'm
are there
asking.
any other reservations? And we've turned over every rock on the planet to try to get this structured right.
Laurel, and they can start.
I would make that motion.
I'll
Is it-
second it.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
It's on your agenda, so yes.
Okay.
Do you have any reservations about us doing that?
he's telling us to do it.
He's telling us.
We've been asking for 5 years.
We're spending money, so how much are we spending? $500,000?
I don't have
400?
an agreement.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm
It's on your agenda.
It's right here.
489, yeah, it's $500,000, so I mean, that's what we're voting on.
Yep.
Just so we're
Plus-
clear. Plus the
Are you
88?
just voting on B, or are you approving B and C?
I would include B and C.
Okay.
Let's move.
But- Okay,
Let's vote.
are there reservations? Check. No reservations?
No.
Okay,
Okay, how do you vote? Sherman?
Yes.
Belden?
yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Avy, yes.
Just one last question, Chip.
Yes.
From a, we've got a vote of some sort of commitment. What sort of brackets do we need to put around, when that negotiation needs to end?
That's what I'm getting at, yeah, so we know what our final picture looks like, exactly.
I just want to inform them, like, hey, thank you for your participation. We need to get this all done by this date.
Yeah,
If we
so-
could move that along, with them, so that you have time to do your magic.
I don't, there's nothing there magic about this. Time's long past. You have 556,000 of unspent bond proceeds from the 2017 bonds. I know you don't want to hear it, but you should use that to pay DGR's engineering. That was supposed to be spent by December of 2020.
Let's include that in the motion.
No, I don't wanna pay that all upfront.
We've
You
already-
mean over time
We've
or
already
what?
done the motion.
It'll be over the process of the substation project.
Is this their entire bill?
Yeah.
You gotta make a note.
You didn't have to make another.
Okay,
Hold on a second, is this their entire bill? That's, I mean, I can't remember, it's been so long. We looked at that, it was 5.7 million, but what's their percentage that? That's about 10%, right? Eight or nine?
I'm not gonna make up numbers. I think
Oh,
this
that's
is,
fine.
this is
That's fine.
design work. I think there might be something separate, probably during the construction, process. What that is, this is the first part and is what's needed, I guess. That's what I know.
No, we wouldn't send this all to them tomorrow.
Here's
is my point. This
the
is
way to
gonna
find
be-
comfort in it. It's all in as part of the 5.7 million. So it's in that number.
Okay, so they're not gonna bill us all of that at once. It'll all be through the
No.
life of the project.
It'll be over time.
Yeah.
Increments.
Yeah.
He's got it laid out, the amendment items. The preliminary design phase of this project is substantially complete. This amendment authorizes the final design, bidding, and construction phases for procurement and construction of electric utility improvements as described in phase 1 of the client's capital improvements plan and as revised and described in the preliminary drawings and project budget.
So.
No.
You're just asking her to pay that out of that fund, any bill she gets, you're asking her to spend those
I would
funds.
encourage that, because that needs to be spent.
Are you good with
pronto.
that?
So
I mean, you know where those dollars
Yeah.
are or not?
Same
Is it
line
a separate
account.
account or what?
We pay it all out of the same line account so we can keep track of it. That's how I know how much is left in chip access.
Okay, but that particular overage from 17, you know where that's at or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything to do with that.
How did that get, no, I know, but how does that sit around for that many years and not?
It's because you have a good conservative engineer. It's good, but it would have been nice to spend that. We had contingencies in that 2017 financing.
No, but I mean, how do those government dollars, are they not required to be spent without some sort of audit finding, I guess is what I'm.
They are required to be spent.
Okay, all right,
And,
never mind.
We talk to Steve about
I'm
it
not-
every year.
I can't hear you.
We talk to Steve about it every year. Every year he says you need to spend it.
Oh, the auditor, okay.
Yeah, and so the reason it's about $200,000 less than the last time Chip checked in is because Steve said we could buy the boring machine with those funds.
I got you, okay.
Yeah.
So it's being spent, so we're good. It's in process.
Let's vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got nothing else.
Okay, city administrator reports.
Wait, did we vote on our motion?
You did.
Yeah.
Was that VNC?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
Okay. All right, so we'll just flip through these real fast. Page 1, if you look at total cash to the bottom, that's all of the funds that we utility has. Page 2, this is a year-to-date summary, so from the beginning of the fiscal year to the end of the month of April, we have a positive number of about $182,000. That's great. Page 3, this does not reflect the amendment that was approved, so your total budget is 3.47 million. You spent 3.21 million. Without the amendment, you have 2.6 million left. With the amendment, it's 1.1 million. Page 4 is the month-to-date total, so from the beginning of April to the end of April, you are positive $48,000. We move on to the utility billing reports without saying any names. The delinquent accounts report, there are 27 delinquent accounts, 26 on the first page, and 1 on the second page. Delinquent accounts paid in full, there are no changes. On to the payment agreements, there are 12 payment agreements. Next is paid in full payment agreements, there are no changes there. Next is deceased or bankrupt, there are no changes. And total collected by the state offset program, there are no changes. But there should be soon, because, as I like to say, it's another victim of government efficiency. They completely changed the way that they run the program. And so from the time when we completed the paperwork until they finally got us in there to use it, it's been almost 3 years. So we should start to see some numbers on these pages now.
Adjourn.
Thank you, guys.